everybody? Welcome back to Just the Best Parts. It's SP, and I'm back in the chair. Last week's episode was divisive, to be sure, with the fandom pretty much split down the middle. And here's a couple of the issues. One, the Chosen One question, and if the show broke Star Wars. I don't think it did for a couple of reasons. There was no mention of a specific Chosen One prophecy, or if there was, we haven't heard of it yet. But I didn't see anything out there that kind of like contradicted the idea that Anakin isn't only the Chosen One. I think it's a really big galaxy, and there's a lot of room for abilities that some consider to be unnatural, so to speak. So does it bother me? Nope. Not in the least. Like I said, it's a big galaxy. Two, the fire sequence. So some thought it was poorly written and edited. Others think that there's just context that was purposely left out of the scene. Torben's confession and death definitely suggests this, but there's a missing piece here that I don't think a lot of people noticed, is when Torben was giving the test to Osha, he had no scar. But at the end of the episode, that scar was very present and it was very fresh. That suggests that there has been a time jump here and that we do not know the entire story. So either it's the biggest plot hole ever or there's more to it. And I think that centers around Mother Coral. At Rocky's Boy down in the comments suggested that she might be teamed up with the Sith to manipulate the situation. I think that's a really good theory. Who knows? Maybe she is the main Sith. I don't know. Or is it even an actual Sith? Either way, I do think she is involved. And number 3, because of all the colorful comments I received, I'm starting a new segment for things people are freaking out about, like fires on spaceships, and broken physics, and bad dialogue, and bad acting, and, things being too kiddie. Honestly, if you're asking me, man, the acting and dialogue is way better compared to the old days of Star Wars. I mean, come on, man. The Phantom Menace was an absolute mess when it came to that stuff. And if Ewoks were introduced into this show, people would absolutely lose their shit. So is the Acolyte perfect? Nope. It's got its cringe moments, but I think it's better than Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi. So far, I'm liking the Acolyte, but we're only 3 episodes in. I'll reserve my final judgment once the story is done. But I do love that we're finally getting a new era in Star Wars with its own lore and characters to explore, as opposed to just being spoon-fed the same crap year after year. Look, I love Star Wars, but I love it for the good, the bad, and the ugly. It doesn't have to be perfect for me to like it. Nothing is perfect. But what I don't do is go to other channels and rage hate about it like a baby. If you hate it, fine. Go hate it somewhere else. You're just gonna get it deleted here. So for this week's episode, I think we're going to jump back into the present. I think we're going to get Kelnaka's story a little bit. And I think we're going to learn a little bit more about Smilo Ren. Is it Khmer? Is it Mother Coral? And I do think that the plot's going to thicken in this episode too. And as far as my reaction is concerned, I'm doing something a little bit different. It's more of a commentary review than a reaction. I'm only including what I consider to be the best parts of the show. I mean, after all, that's the title of this channel. I feel like this way, my overall analysis can be more focused on what's important with the story. But I've talked long enough. Let's just go ahead and dive in and see what's what. Okay, so first thing I notice is what's up with Kelnaka and the Spiral Yin-Yang art. You know, here he is. It's 16 years later. He's alone, apparently obsessed with this whole thing. Here's my question is, did he become possessed like Torben, perhaps by Coral, forced to do something awful? Obviously, there's been something in his head that's driving this whole idea of imagery. And that's really interesting to me. So I'm curious to see what happens in a flashback. Maybe we get more context to that. And of course, we need to talk about Khmer. This dude, he plays the fool. He's stumbling over crates. He's acting like a goof. But there's obviously more going on here. I mean, notice how he continuously pushes May at just the right moments. You know, he states, you made a deal kind of thing. And he's trying to influence her with the whole, what kind of test is this? He's playing dumb this entire time. And then he kind of twists the knife a little bit with this whole idea of, talking about, your sister was really good with soul. Like, he's definitely trying to put something on him. Or this is another big thing, man. I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me that he is the Sith, or whatever you want to call him, Darksider or whatever. But could it be that he's just a big red hair? I would like to think that the story isn't that on the nose, that we've already figured it out. Is there something more going on here, and that he's just the one that's meant to throw us off? I don't know. I mean, we're going to find out. We've got 4 more episodes or whatever. I think that there's more going on here, though, than meets the eye. I mean, maybe he is the Dark Apprentice or something like that, but not the master. You know, I mean, maybe the master's somebody else, you know, that maybe, who knows, maybe that's Coral. I hope that they don't think that they're snowing the audience, because if this is literally what they're going to do, it's not catching anybody off guard. And by the way, right before this scene, we get this weird Vanestra and Soul scene, you know, talking about, you know, how a Jedi trained her, you know, and then they go into the corner or whatever, and she's all like, how could you have missed this or whatever? And I thought that was a weird scene, because then you get like you get Holden and Kiara Mundi, and they're kind of like giving him like the stink eye a little bit out of the corner there, you know, and the music gets all weird. Like, now I'm thinking, like, is he sketch in this whole thing? So I think they're doing a pretty good job of like keeping it like kind of like, well, you know, because now I'm thinking that Soul might be behind this a little bit, and maybe he's not. Maybe he was just kind of hiding stuff, covering it up. But there does seem to be something more than meets the eye. And that whole suspicion look that they gave him and the music, that really kind of like was like, yeah, definitely something going on there. Do they suspect him of knowing more than what he's actually saying? So, and you know, and then there's some people talking about Indara not actually being dead, and that she's the one pulling the strings. You know, and I think that that's an interesting idea. But I don't know how that lines up. I like this idea, but I haven't given it enough thought to see if it has merit. And if it does, I think that would be a great twist. And also back to Soul, it's like, why does he always need Osha there? You know, I mean, I don't mean to be too sus about Soul, but it's almost like this whole dyad thing. And I know that that's not a topic that a lot of people like to talk about. You know, it does seem kind of weird to me that there could possibly be this whole dyad situation. I mean, I get it when he says, oh, you got to go because, you know, it's your journey or whatever. But something just feels off about it. I'm starting to really suspect Soul of some shenanigans here. So here's a negative, potentially from a storytelling perspective. I was not a fan of the bug scene. Either it wasn't finished or it was kind of just this major wah-wah moment. Typically, with a scene like this, we're introduced to a danger, i.e. the bug. You know, it raises the tension. And then later on, we get the big attack, you know, relating to the original moment. In other words, a big old swarm of bugs. We didn't get any of that. Now, it may be that's a warning for the future, that it, like in the next episode or something, we might be getting this big ass swarm of bugs coming. That's fine. Then it'll pay off. But if that's all it was, other than to have just this moment with Jecki and Osha, then that fell a little flat for me. I was literally expecting like this big, like massive scene, and it was just like this single bug, and that was the end of it. It just seemed kind of like weird to me. And speaking of negative, since we're right here, you know, and I keep hearing people calling out the acting and the dialogue or whatever, and you know, that doesn't bother me. Star Wars has been filled with that from day one. It's kind of to be expected, so that doesn't really rile me up. One thing that did though, and this actually was a thing for me. What did bother me was the janky ass looking sets. I've become so spoiled on location shooting that when they're in the studio, it just looks fake as hell. And you know, and for a budget of $190 million, I would hope that the sets look better than Star Trek The Next Generation. Yeah, so that was the most major negative takeaway that I had in this episode. You know, so back to Kamir, why is he so freaking adamant about rushing Osha back to Kelnakas? He's like, you gotta go. You can't stop for water. You can't take a break. I mean, it can't be just because the sun's going down, right? I mean, maybe the moths? I don't know, maybe it's because the moths come out at night or whatever, and he's all tripping out of that. Or does he sense those Jedi quickly approaching, and he needs to go make sure that Kelnaka's dead? But then isn't it like her goal to take out Kelnaka? But then he's kind of like, well, screw it, I'll just do it. I don't know, man. There's some weird shit going on here, man, and it doesn't make any sense. There's something very strange, and I hope it's not just like weird plot holes. I mean, surely the writing can't be that, right? I mean, surely it's got to be better than that. There's got to be like something that we're missing. I mean, we've got 4 more episodes here. I just don't know what to believe, and that's the strangest thing for me. It's like, usually, you know, you kind of have an idea of where the story's going or whatever, but this is like, but then it feels like it's just kind of a red herring here. I just don't understand it, and it feels strange, so I'm curious to see where it goes. And also, you notice that how freaked out he is. He's super frustrated by May. You know, when she starts talking about, wait, this isn't actually a test, I don't need it, he gets pissed off, man. He is not happy about it. It's almost like he's saying, I'm the apprentice and you're my acolyte, and I am trying to breadcrumb you all the way to a solution here. And you're just not hearing me. And then he just goes and gets her water or whatever, comes back and falls into a trap. That seems weird. Like he's all like, oh no, I'm in a trap. And then he is like, he's gonna kill you. And then the last thing, man, I'm really bummed out that all we got was dead Kelnaka. I mean, come on, man. I know that he shows up later on in flashbacks. I would have loved to have seen him in the actual, like the present time doing like Jedi stuff, but we didn't. So we got dead Kelnaka. So that was a knock on the episode as well. Lastly, I did like the reveal of the Sith, or Darksider, or whatever you want to call them. You know, it's kind of creepy, the whole float down thing. Yeah, it was a little dramatic. I mean, people are just kind of like, what? But it was cool. I mean, it didn't bother me. What I thought was most interesting in that scene, though, was the hands and the arms. Those don't look like the hands and arms of a woman, so maybe that leaves Coral out. So it was definitely a dude. So that leaves, you know, basically Kamir. So overall, this was not my favorite episode. There were aspects that I really liked, though. They were pretty good. Mainly the mystery surrounding Kamir. I really thought that was interesting. I also liked the reveal of the Darksider, but, you know, the wonky sets, the bad animation of Basil did not look good. You know, and Dead Kelnaka kind of makes this a meh episode for me. But, you know, next week's episode is supposed to be a banger, so I don't know. We'll see. I haven't decided if all these loose ends are the result of excellent writing, which will all be revealed at the end, or if it's just a minefield of plot holes. You know, I hope it's not the latter. I hope they pull this thing together and it just blows everybody's mind. But until next week, thanks for visiting Just the Best Parts. I'm SP, and I look forward to next week's episode.